You sit in a typical 7th period calculus class. You're taking an online brand logo quiz to pass the time before spring break. It is aggressively boring. And that boredom is a luxury. It comes from the deep, unspoken assumption that the building around you is entirely impenetrable. Then, the public address system crackles. A frantic administrator announces an immediate, non-drill lockdown. In a single moment, the entire purpose of the building flips. It stops being a place of education and instantly becomes a survival zone. This map shows how a lockdown actually operates. The level of danger you face is dictated by one very specific metric: the physical distance between you and the threat. We can break this down into the perimeter, the threshold, and zero distance. Let's start at the perimeter. It's an overcast October day during a middle school lunch period. The cafeteria is packed with kids eating when 4 massive, unexplained booms echo through the air. Everyone freezes. The initial terror of a lockdown protocol always starts with the information void. The students know a threat exists, but they have absolutely no idea what it is or how close it is. Campus security rushes in, shouting at the students to abandon their food. They herd the entire crowd into a massive multi-purpose room and hastily drag heavy curtains over the see-through glass walls that face the street outside. One curious student asks an adult what is happening. The answer is chilling. A man with severe mental disabilities, who is also a registered sex offender, has barricaded himself inside a house directly across the street from the campus. He is threatening to kill police if they attempt to evict him. The neighbors already knew he was unstable. The previous Halloween, a student named Brandy watched this exact same man stand in his window, cut his own arm, and write death threats on the glass in his own blood. They assumed it was a sick holiday prank. But earlier that very morning, before the standoff even began, he had been pacing the perimeter outside the school, watching the children in a deeply unsettling way. The students end up trapped in that room for a full hour. They realize that a school's perimeter is an illusion. The safety of the interior is entirely at the mercy of whatever unpredictable chaos happens to be unfolding just a few feet beyond the glass. But what happens when that boundary fails entirely? We return to that relaxed 7th period calculus class. A student has just correctly guessed a logo on their quiz when the dean's voice cuts through the speaker, frantic, demanding an immediate lockdown. The teacher instantly executes the baseline protocol. He kills the overhead lights, orders complete silence, and ushers every student into the furthest back corner of the room to hide. They sit quietly for 2 minutes, waiting. Then, the low hum of the electrical panel in the back of the room abruptly stops. Someone has cut the entire power grid. The building is plunged into total darkness. The silence in the dark holds for a few more minutes until a man's voice erupts down the hallway. He is screaming at the top of his lungs, violently slamming his fists against the metal lockers, yelling that he is going to kill everyone inside. The threat has successfully breached the physical threshold of the building. Rigid safety procedures quickly evaporate. The students are now completely reliant on simple concealment and pure luck. The violent banging moves methodically down the hall until it arrives directly at the calculus classroom. The man pounds his fists against a heavy wooden door, screaming for them to open up. Students begin to cry in the dark. They wait in agonizing suspense to see if the lock will hold against the assault. Finally, the man stops hitting the door, and his deranged screaming slowly fades as he wanders further down the corridor. 10 minutes later, the dean announces that an unstable person assaulted the front desk receptionist and entered the campus. Staff sweep the building but report it clear. However, a night shift janitor later discovers the intruder sleeping inside a back storage closet. The details that emerge later reveal exactly how close to death the students were. According to campus rumors, the man had a .44 Magnum protruding directly from his pocket. The janitor accidentally woke him, and he vanished into the night before the police arrived. A simple mechanical lock on a wooden door was the only fragile barrier separating a room full of teenagers from a heavily armed intruder. Proximity strips away the illusion of control. Now we push the proximity to 0. A 22-year-old college graduate is working as a computer intern in his old high school's basement. His office is nice, but it lacks an actual door, just a wide, open frame leading out to the main basement area, which itself has no working lock. The front office calls down, warning him that a possibly armed intruder is inside the building. Completely isolated from the chaos above, he texts his coworkers upstairs. No response. He powers down his screens, turns off the lights, and crawls under his desk, hiding in the dark for 20 minutes. Without warning, the old basement door loudly creaks open. Heavy footsteps begin hurrying down the wooden stairs. They make a direct line towards his open, doorless office, and then stop in dead silence. The intern physically cannot handle the tension. He dives out from under his desk, throwing his hands up, pleading for his life. Instead of violence, a man in a red plaid shirt and a reddish-black cap grabs his arm, pulls him up, and whispers that he's just a parent trying to hide, asking which way the exit is. The intern points him toward the exit. In high-stress, zero-distance scenarios, the human brain often defaults to survival denial. Victims will blindly accept any nonviolent explanation an intruder offers, simply because they desperately want to believe they are safe. But the illusion fractures instantly. In the quiet darkness of the basement, the intern's phone lets out a loud ding. He looks down at a delayed text message from a coworker upstairs. This diagram represents the flow of information. The text message reveals critical intelligence. Mr. Buckley has been shot. The active shooter is wearing a red shirt and hat. This information finally reaches the basement. The man standing inches away is the shooter. Absolute zero distance. The intern looks up from his phone, his stomach dropping. The suspect immediately notices the shift in his eyes, catching on to the suspicious stare. Panicking, the intern blindly bolts for the basement stairs. A deafening gunshot erupts behind him. The bullet violently ricochets off a metal surface in the pitch black. The intern doesn't look back, scrambling up the stairs and throwing open the exit door, right into the arms of the waiting police, who swarm the basement and apprehend the shooter. Mr. Buckley miraculously survived, but the intern carries the sound of that gunshot in the dark forever. School safety procedures are designed to feel sterile and controlled. But when the threat actually arrives, a lockdown is a chaotic, traumatic collision between the fragile illusion of sanctuary and the encroaching reality of a violent world.